Hello and welcome to another Bones V Kickstarter review. Today we'll be looking at the 5th set of add-ons that I managed to pick up, and as the title suggests, we'll be looking at the encounter at Gallowguard, the Goroloth, and the Kaiju Chaos add-ons. Currently, all 3 of these add-ons are still available in the Bones 5.5 Pledge Manager. If you're interested in acquiring them or any other Kickstarter item, scan the QR code at the end of the video or visit pm.reapermini.com or reapermini.com for more information. If this is your first time seeing a review in this series, I have many more deep dives on my channel for you to check out. But you can get to them quicker by clicking the card in the corner of the video or by checking out the links in the description. Alright, now without further ado, on with the review. The first add-on we'll be looking at today is the encounter at Gallowguard. This was an $18 option originally, and I'm just going to say this up front. This is the weakest encounter of the Kickstarter in my opinion, mostly due to some quality issues we'll get into later, which isn't to say that I think the set is bad or that the figures are bad. I actually think they're very nice. Just compared to other encounters, this one was one I didn't put in my cart for a long time, and I feel kind of justified in hesitating now in hindsight. Anyways, let's look at what we got. Well, first things first, we have our hero figure, this human scout. This is actually a recast figure from Reaper's Darkhaven Legends line, Shoemaker. He looks like he's in the process of tracking something or stealthing around an enemy camp. He's pretty cool, but maybe less of a combat figure given the pose. In fact, I think he'd actually be a great hireling figure to represent a scout or a guide that your party has recruited. If I were a player though, I personally wouldn't gravitate towards this piece unless I was going for a very specific vibe. Speaking of vibes, next up we have 4 of these spooky, scary skeletons, which make up the bulk of the figures in this set. Each have a different set of armor and weapons, and they're all really great generic skeleton sculpts that I think any GM would enjoy adding to their collection. However, when I tried to assemble these, it was an exceedingly frustrating activity. For whatever reason, the material of these was incredibly bendy with these models, and finding the slots where some of these tiny limb or spinal columns or whatever would slot in was just a headache. And even if you did find the right spot, you'd have to hold the figure together at these awkward angles, which resulted in a very sticky situation for me, and one where I eventually had to just make adjustments to one of the skeletons. It doesn't help either that these figures are so small and thin that it feels like you're going to break them constantly when you're having to hold them together. I guess I just have a problem with these skeletons. Anyway, the actual detail and everything else is very nice. They're a good looking lot, it's just that they suffered during the assembly. This will unfortunately be a theme going forward, as is the case with the big bad of this encounter, Lord Karastan, atop his Unid steed. He looks really great. He's got yet another one of those really nice shields that we saw previously. And I think having the skeletal horse, which looks great by the way, rearing up was the way to go with this one. It just gives the figure a great dynamic look. But I do have some concerns about the figure though. For one, Karastan here doesn't exactly sit well on his horse. There are these 2 little pegs that kind of slot over, but he also has this 3rd peg on his underside which actually isn't on the horse saddle at all. On top of that, there's these bits of armor that stick out over the saddle area and kind of prevent you from putting the figure on without hooking it under those bits of armor, and that doesn't really work out too well. Rider aside, the horse looks great, and if you've watched the earlier parts of this series, you'll know how much I enjoy being able to separate a mount from its rider for a free second mini. But the horse does have a few issues too. The cloak over it does hide a lot of the skeletal features, that's fine, but the skeleton is also very bendy as you saw before. Because of how bendy it is, getting that cloak on it was no easy task, and the skeleton required a lot of assembly compared to the other mounts from this Kickstarter, like even the Skeletors from the Daimyo set. So if you have trouble assembling small pieces, you may want to get some help with this one. Still, I gotta say, this is just a great looking figure, and I do like all these figures, even if it doesn't sound like I don't. I'm just a little disappointed with the assembly process. Now, with all those figures out of the way, we come to the main draw of this set, the drawbridge. Now, this figure was also somewhat troublesome to assemble, but that's mostly just because it was warped, so I just haven't glued it yet. Yep, this thing is just barely held together by sheer force of will. It does look really nice. I think it'll make for a great diorama centerpiece. Unfortunately, the way the drawbridge connects, it doesn't actually make for a great removable or liftable piece. So the functionality of a drawbridge is not really utilized here, but it does look great. And it's a good chunk of plastic once put together. With everything I've discussed in consideration, I'm giving this encounter a 7 out of 12. It's good, but it just doesn't hold up next to the competition. Moving on, this is Reaper's Goroloth. It was a single figure add-on that is still available in the PM for only $2 more than what I paid. The figure is Reaper's analog for a 5E aboleth, though you could use this for a number of other large tentacle-faced fish creatures. I think this figure would go great alongside others from the Dark Depths expansion, what with the aquatic nature and all. It was fairly easy to assemble, at least in terms of getting the tentacles on, which is all I really had to do. It's all made very obvious what slots in where. The only assembly left after that is gluing the fins and the tentacles down to their pegs. That may be more of a hassle than it looks, but I'm in no rush to do that anyway, as I have to paint the creature first. There's a lot of detail on what could have just been a big slimy looking fish thing. It was a good add-on for a good price, and it's still a good price. I give this add-on a 10 out of 12. It's Godzilla? Not quite. This is the Kaiju Chaos add-on, and as you can see, this kaiju is not exactly kaiju sized. I actually have a Godzilla figure on hand, but I wouldn't say it's to scale. Still, if I were going for an actual kaiju in my game, I might grab it instead. If I sound unimpressed or perturbed by this mini, I'm not. I just expected it to be a bit bigger. But it is plenty large, about young dragon sized. Looks a bit of a Godzilla knockoff, a bit reptilian, and it's vaguely beaver-like. Mostly because of the paddle and the tail, which, point of note, if this is a reptile and it acts like a reptile, it should swim side to side. But this paddle, it seems, is meant for a swimmer that undulates up and down, like how a mammal swims. Like a beaver, for instance. Anyway, I just mentioned that as a point of order how this is a strange creature, but, it's a strange creature that any fan of giant monster films may appreciate picking up. It would have been nice if this guy was a bit bigger, but it's pretty cool for what we get. I give this single figure add-on a 9 out of 12. And with that, we conclude yet another set of add-on reviews. I had a lot to say about some of the add-ons today. Did you have a favorite item? Will you be getting any of these? Did my review affect any of that decision making? Let me know those answers in the comments down below. You can expect many more of these shorter form review videos to come, wherein I will break down nearly every add-on from this Kickstarter. For the bigger sets of figures, be sure to check out the review playlist for the core set and the expansions. And if you see anything in there or in these that you're interested in buying, head to pm.reapermini.com or reapermini.com for more information. Also, as a heads up, I recently checked the Reaper web store, and I'm already seeing some Kickstarter items heading to retail soon. So, keep an eye on that web store if you're interested in anything you've been seeing in these videos. Alright, if you found this video helpful, enjoyable, or some other adjective, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Really helps me out. Seeing your support really genuinely makes my day. I'm a small channel, just the one person. And so seeing anybody really enjoying my content, it really does mean a lot. Alrighty, thank you for watching. Have a good one. And let's go paint some minis. See you in the next video.